Okay, so it's happening. It is now time to do the relicing on this body. And as we've previously discussed, this isn't a universally popular choice, but it is the customer's choice and it is what is going to happen basically. And I've been doing a lot of research into this because I haven't ever done this before. So I've looked at a huge number of pictures of old Stratocasters in various states of distress, with a view to kind of coming up with a plan as to how I'm going to go about this. I was also given some images from the customer with the kind of level of relicing that he's after, and I don't know how well you can see that, but realistically none of these guitars are particularly heavily reliced. There's just kind of wear in the places that you would expect to see wear on a Stratocaster. So with that in mind, I've come up with the concept that to understand the level of relicing needed on this guitar, I need to have a story as to why it is in the condition that it is. So the little story that I've kind of made up is that this is a guitar that's been in the hands of one owner for a very long time. So potentially decades. They've looked after the guitar, they've loved the guitar, they've gigged it, it's been used at home, and over the years that constant use has introduced wear onto the guitar. Additional to that, obviously in a gigging environment, instruments get bashed about a little bit. He was always careful with the guitar, so there are some dings and dents in it, but it hasn't been battered, it hasn't been abused. So there will be a few little dents, but most of it will be natural wear. And from what I've seen in my research and from what I'm able to see in images and just understanding how a guitar gets used, I think there will be wear in this area where the arm goes over. There will be wear on the back where it rubs against the body. Buckle rash in the centre of the body there, which is a common thing. And then little bits and pieces of wear just where the guitar's been used. So in this area around the input jack, have you ever tried kind of plugging a guitar in when you're not looking? You quite often hit the jack into the body, and over the years that would have an impact on that area. So we're looking at a little bit of wear there. Around this area where it's being played sat down would introduce wear, and like me, this player keeps a pick underneath the pick guard on the lower horn, and that will have kind of chipped and damaged the paint as well. There are already some little dents in the body that I didn't bother doing anything about when I was prepping it because I knew we were going to do this process. So anywhere there's a little dent, I'm just going to pick the paint out, so it looks like it's accidental damage that has just knocked the paint off. Now you might have noticed when I turn this over that I've already removed a little bit of paint there. That is one of those chips. I did that first thing this morning because that was my point of no return. Once I did that, I have to carry on with the process. So that explains that a little bit. The next step is, how am I going to get this paint off? Now, the kind of wear I'm talking about has been introduced by repeated and constant contact with clothing or skin, both of which aren't particularly abrasive. So my plan is, I'm going to use a sharp knife to remove and scratch off the areas of paint where I think it needs to be removed. I am then going to sand that with kind of quite a fine grade of wet and dry paper. I'm going to do it dry, and that is to just smooth out those edges so they feel like they've been naturally worn away by contact with clothing or skin. In the areas where the damage has been introduced by, say, the input jack plug being banged against it, or where it's been leant up against something, stood on the floor, that will just kind of be chipped off and made to look like it's impact damage. What I've seen in terms of impact damages, it tends to be around the perimeter of the guitar, especially kind of the lower end. And I think that is probably from where guitars are leant up against something on the floor and they've just banged into something that is also in that area on the floor. So that's the plan, but before I start the scary bit of actually removing paint, I want to just put the main components loosely into the body so I can kind of get an understanding of where we need to be doing the bulk of the work, because obviously anything under the pick guard won't have been worn, but also the presence of the pick guard, the bridge, the jack plate, etc. are actually reasons why wear might have been introduced. So realistically, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a pencil line in there that will give me an idea of where the damage needs to be. I'm going to put a pencil line in there to mark the extent of any damage that might be around there. I can kind of understand where that is, but I'll just put some lines in there as well. And I can always go back and put those elements back in position if I need further understanding of what I'm doing. But with that done, there's nothing for it now but to actually crack on and get some paint off of this. I experimented with a scalpel, but it was too flexible. And while it was sharp and did the job, it wasn't very controllable. So I'm actually going to just use my little pocket knife. It's relatively sharp and it's got quite a sturdy blade. And I think this should do the job. And I'm going to start in this area around the body contour and on here. And I'm simply just going to start shaving that away. And I'm not going to go any further than that on the top of the body, and take a little bit more off on the side. And then with the bulk of that taken off, I'm first going to, this is a bit of 240 grit. And I'm just going to use that to feather the edge of the paint. To give that effect of wear rather than damage. And then this is some 800 paper. And I'll just finish cleaning that up with that. Okay, and I think that's looking quite nice now. I'm happy with that, and it's nice and smooth. There isn't any kind of noticeable change in surface level between the paint and the wood. However, it has kind of scratched up the paintwork a little bit. So before I go any further, I'm just going to use a little bit of T-Cut, which is just a colour restorer basically. I'm just going to kind of polish up around that area. Just to get the worst of that scratching off. And I think that's looking good. However, I think this wood looks a little bit too new. So I've actually got some Relic patina from Night or Lac. Now, I've never used this stuff before. I don't know what it's like and how it works. I've got a little bit in a cup there, and I'm just going to try and wipe a little bit on with a tissue. It's a deep dark brown colour, so I don't want to put too much on. Just a little smear like that. And that's just darkened that up a touch. And I think that looks much, much better. Okay, so next up, I spoke about these earlier. There's a little chip there. And I took a little lump out of the wood when I was sanding it. I managed to just get the sandpaper underneath a bit of grain and it flicked it up. Normally I would have done something about that, but in this instance it kind of just saved me a job for later on, really. So I'm just going to, again, take the paint out there and just make that look like a little bit of impact damage. Again, just smooth that out. And then just add a little bit of that colour. And give it a bit of teacut. And in terms of that top area there on the body, I kind of think that's enough. I don't think we need to go any further than that at all. I think that looks quite authentic. So I'm going to turn my attention to the bottom area, and I'm literally just going to this area where the pick has been constantly put in. Just going to wear some of that down. It's not going to be massive. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking now and I'm just going to start working my way around this, and I'll get back to you when we've done. There's the top done. I've put a little bit in there where the pick's been going in and out for years. A little bit of wear there where it's been played sat down, wear around the input. A couple of little chips along that bottom edge. And then this piece at the top. I really like the way that this relic patina kind of darkens the wood down. Just makes it look like it's been there forever. I think what I'm finding though is that this is actually far too shiny, this guitar. So I think once I've done with the relicing process, I'm going to give it a quick flat off with something very fine. I'm probably thinking some 3000 paper, maybe a 3000 Trizac, just to take off some of that shine. And then I'll go back over it with the finer of the two polishes that I got from Nitolac, and I'll just do that by hand, just to kind of give it a shine, but not so much of a shine that it looks like it's been freshly made. At the moment, I'm thinking that's probably enough. I don't think we need to go too much further with it. I might just add a couple of more little nicks here and there as we go through, but on the whole, this is the kind of effect I'm going for. So I'm going to whip it over and start to have a look at the back. Now, there's an argument to say that you'd actually get more wear on the back than you would on the front because it's constantly in contact with your clothing, your body, etc. Whereas the front isn't really getting that much, but kind of on the whole, I think we're heading in the right direction. Okay, so there's the back done. A little bit of damage around the bottom of the body and then kind of quite a lot of wear on there. Now, I think in this process, less is definitely more, and I've probably gone a little bit further than I thought I was going to go. It's a little bit addictive, this is. But I think we are kind of in the ballpark. Now, there's a couple of things I think are making this look really nice. The first is when I've been kind of smoothing things out and just cleaning up the scratches a little bit with this T-cut, it's actually introducing some of the red colour into the white primer, and it's kind of yellowing it off and making it look really old and a little bit manky, which I think is absolutely perfect for this situation. I think anything that would look white and new would just look completely out of place. And also this relic patina on the wood is just giving it a nice dark colour that again makes it look like this damage is ancient and hasn't just been done in the last couple of days. So I'm going to put my knife away now. I'm going to clean up the bench and I'm going to get rid of anything that's going to take off huge amounts of paint, because I think we've gone far enough with this. So next up, like I say, I'm just going to get a 3000 pad, something similar to that. Give this a good light rub over all over the body just to dull off the shine a little bit, and then I'm going to break out this fine polish and just give it a little bit of a buff up by hand just to bring that shine back a little bit, and we'll see where we are with it. I'm just moving this down with a 3000 Trizac pad with a little bit of water at the moment. Okay, so that's the back rubbed down with that 6000 and just polished back up again with a bit of that fine polish, and that has given me the look I'm after. It's it's shiny, but there's a haziness to it as well, which makes it look like it's been around for a very long time, which after all is what we're trying to achieve with this. So I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to do exactly the same thing to the front, which shouldn't take me too long, and then we're going to be pretty much done. Okay, and there it is, all finished off. I think that's looking really, really nice. Very happy with that. And if I just kind of add in the hardware onto the top of the body, I think that looks very, very good. My worry is that when I take this protective layer off the pick guard, it might look a little bit too new, a little bit too shiny. So it might be the case that we have to take some steps to dull that down a little bit, maybe put a little bit of an age onto it. I don't know, I'll have to ask the owner, but I think on the whole that looks really nice. It's got that relic look without going too far with it. So next up, I need to get all of the hardware refitted, get everything wired up, and make this into a usable guitar body once more. But that's all going to be for the next episode. So I'm going to leave this one here. I'll be back in a few days' time when we do all of that. Until then, don't forget to hit that like button if you've enjoyed this, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.